The great hall of the Night Fang Pack was a sea of whispers and rustling silk, a cavern of ancient stone lit by the warm, dancing light of 100 torches. Banners bearing the crest of a snarling black wolf hung from the high shadowed ceilings, watching over the most important night in a generation. The air itself thrummed with a nervous, excited energy, thick with the scent of pine from the forest outside and the sweet perfume worn by every unmarried young woman in the pack. They stood in a glittering, anxious line, their finest dresses shimmering under the firelight, each one hoping, praying, that tonight would change her life forever. This was the choosing ceremony, and the new Alpha King Talon was to select his Luna, his queen, from among them. Tucked away behind a thick, carved stone pillar near the back of the hall, Selene wished she could disappear into the shadows completely. The rough, cool stone against her back was a small comfort, a solid thing in a world that felt like it was spinning too fast. She smoothed the simple dark blue fabric of her dress, a stark contrast to the jewels and bright colors the other girls wore. From her hiding spot, she had a perfect view of her younger sister, Raina, who stood proudly at the very front of the line. Raina's dress was a stunning sunset orange, her golden hair braided intricately with tiny flowers. She looked every bit the future queen, her chin held high, a confident smile playing on her lips. She was beautiful, strong, and her wolf spirit, a lively fox-like creature, was already a constant, playful presence at her side. Everyone knew Raina was the obvious choice. Earlier, Raina had found Selene trying to make herself small near the refreshment table. "Try not to look so miserable, Selene," Raina had said, her voice a sweet melody that didn't match her words. "You'll spoil the mood. Just stay back here where no one will see you. It's better for everyone." The words had stung as they always did, because they held a painful grain of truth. Selene was 18, well past the age when a wolf spirit should have awakened within her. She felt the emptiness where that connection should be, a silent void that marked her as different, as broken. The ceremony wasn't for her. It was a duty to witness, a painful reminder of what she would never have. A sudden hush fell over the crowd, so complete that the crackle of the torches seemed deafening. Every head turned toward the great oak doors at the end of the hall. They swung open silently, and there he was, Alpha King Talon. He was taller than any man in the room, with broad shoulders that seemed to fill the doorway. His hair was the color of dark charcoal, and his eyes, a piercing stormy gray, scanned the room with an intensity that made the air feel charged. He moved with a predator's grace, each step quiet and deliberate, exuding a power that was as natural as breathing. Beside him walked his beta, Grant, a serious but kind-faced man who offered a slight, reassuring nod to the crowd. The ceremony began. Talon started his slow walk down the line of hopeful young women. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft sound of his boots on the stone floor. He would pause before each girl, his expression unreadable, giving a brief, respectful nod before moving on. He was getting closer to the front. Selene saw Raina straighten her posture, her smile becoming even more brilliant. Talon stopped in front of her. Raina's eyes sparkled with triumph. But the king merely gave the same polite, brief nod he had given all the others, and took another step. The look of shocked confusion on Raina's face was instant. A murmur rippled through the crowd. He passed the last girl in the formal line. He had rejected them all. A deep frown creased Talon's brow. He looked unsettled, as if he'd lost something. His stormy eyes swept across the back of the hall, past the important elders, past the groups of watching pack members. They scanned the shadows. And then they stopped. They locked onto Selene. His entire powerful body went rigid. A low, rumbling sound started deep in his chest, a vibration that Selene could feel in her own bones from across the room. It was a growl, pure, primal, and possessive. The crowd parted before him like water before a stone, everyone staring in utter confusion. Talon paid them no mind. His gaze was fixed only on her. Selene's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. She wanted to run, to hide, but her feet were rooted to the spot. He walked directly toward her, each step measured and intent, until he was standing right before her, so close she could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. The growling softened into a deep, satisfied purr. The hall was so silent you could have heard a pin drop. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and took her much smaller hand in his. His touch was surprisingly gentle, but it sent a jolt of electricity shooting straight up her arm. He raised her hand, turning to face the stunned audience, his voice a deep, commanding roar that left no room for argument. "She is mine." For 1 second there was nothing. Then chaos erupted. Voices rose in a confused clamor. Above them all, Raina's shrill cry of outrage rang out. No. It's a mistake. She has no wolf. She's nothing. But Talon was already turning away, his focus solely on the terrified, wide-eyed girl whose hand he held. His beta, Grant, immediately moved to calm the crowd, his voice firm and steadying. Talon began to lead Selene away, through a side door and out of the noisy hall. Selene, her mind a whirling mess of shock and that strange warm tingling from his touch, could do nothing but follow. The last thing she saw before the door closed was the entire pack, including her furious sister, staring after them in complete and utter disbelief. The heavy oak door clicked shut behind them, muting the chaotic uproar of the great hall to a distant, muffled roar. Selene's senses were overwhelmed, first by the sudden quiet, and then by the man who still held her hand. His grip was firm but not tight, a warm, solid anchor in the whirlwind of her shock. He led her not down a grand corridor, but through a narrow, older passageway lined with smooth, cool stone, away from the prying eyes and shouting voices. The air here was different. It smelled of old wood, damp earth, and night-blooming flowers. After a few turns, he pushed open a simple iron gate, and they stepped out into the private royal gardens. Moonlight, pure and silvery, drenched the world outside. It was a complete contrast to the fiery torchlight of the hall. Here, everything was bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Neat rows of night-blooming jasmine and luminescent moonflowers filled the air with a sweet, intoxicating perfume. A light mist clung to the perfectly trimmed grass, and in the center of it all stood a massive ancient oak tree, its branches stretching out like protective arms over a simple stone bench. The only sounds were the gentle rustle of leaves in the cool night breeze and the frantic beating of Selene's own heart. Talon finally stopped beneath the great tree and turned to face her. In the moonlight, he looked less like a terrifying king and more like a sculpture made of shadow and silver. He released her hand and she immediately missed its warmth. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling small and exposed. Why? The word finally escaped her lips, a fragile, breathy sound. Why me? You pass by everyone, you pass by Raina. She's everything a Luna should be. I'm nothing. I don't even have a wolf. She looked down at the dew-kissed grass, unable to meet the intensity of his gaze any longer, the shame of her inadequacy washing over her anew. Talon was silent for a long moment. He didn't move to touch her again. Instead, he took a slow breath as if choosing his words with great care. Look at me, Selene. His voice was different now. It had lost its commanding hall roar and was lower, softer, a quiet rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath their feet. Slowly, hesitantly, she raised her eyes to his. You feel that, don't you? He asked. The pull. The warmth where my skin touched yours. The feeling in your chest that is telling you, despite all your fear, that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Selene's breath hitched. She did feel it. A strange, humming energy was buzzing just under her skin, a current that seemed to connect her directly to him. It was both thrilling and terrifying. That is the mate bond, he explained, his stormy gray eyes holding hers captive. It is a magic older than these stones, older than any pack law. It is the heart of who we are. My wolf, he knew the moment our eyes met across that room. He smelled your scent, jasmine and first snow, and he knew. He recognized his other half. He recognized our home. But my wolf, Selene whispered, her voice trembling. She's silent. She's not there. She is, Talon said, his voice filled with a certainty that brooked no argument. He took a small step closer. She is not silent. She is waiting. She has been waiting for this moment, for my presence, to feel safe enough to wake up. I can feel her, Selene. A beautiful, sleeping spirit curled deep within you. She is not weak. She is patient. No one had ever spoken of her missing wolf like that. Not as a failure but as something precious and dormant. A fragile hope, delicate as a moonflower, began to unfurl in her chest, pushing back against years of doubt and her sister's cruel words. As they stood there, something shifted between them. The initial shock began to melt away, replaced by a new, dawning awareness. The space between them seemed to crackle with an unseen energy. Selene became hyper-aware of the sheer size of him, the strength in his hands, the way the moonlight caught the sharp line of his jaw. This was no longer just about a ceremony or a crown. This was about him. A man. And her. A woman. Talon saw the change in her eyes, the fear receding to be replaced by a curious, hesitant wonder. He moved slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and raised his hand. He didn't grab or demand. He simply cupped her cheek, his thumb stroking a gentle, slow path along her cheekbone. His touch was like a brand, sending waves of that delicious warmth cascading through her entire body. "All my life," he murmured, his voice a husky whisper that was for her ears only, "I have felt the weight of this crown. I have carried the loneliness of command. I thought tonight was just another duty. But then I saw you. Hiding in the shadows, thinking you were less than everyone else." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. His breath was warm on her lips. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Not despite your quiet strength but because of it." Selene's heart was now pounding for a completely different reason. The air grew thick and warm, charged with a mature, spicy tension that made her blood feel like liquid fire. This was a feeling she had never read about in any story. It was overwhelming and all-consuming. "My wolf wants to claim his mate," Talon growled softly, the sound vibrating through her. "But I will wait. I will wait until you ask me to." He leaned in that final, breathtaking inch. His lips met hers. It was not a harsh or demanding kiss. It was a question, a promise, and an answer all at once. It started soft and exploring, a gentle pressure that made her knees feel weak. Then it deepened. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her firmly against the solid wall of his chest. She could feel the powerful beat of his heart against her own. A small, surprised sound escaped her, and she tentatively kissed him back, her hands coming up to rest on his arms, feeling the incredible strength coiled there. The warm feeling he'd spoken of exploded. It wasn't just a feeling anymore, it was a physical wave of heat that started in her core and radiated out to the very tips of her fingers and toes. It was a mature, passionate awakening that left her breathless and clinging to him. The empty void inside her where her wolf should be didn't feel so empty anymore. It felt warm. And for the first time she felt a faint, answering pulse from deep within, a sleepy, contented sigh. The sound of a raised, furious voice slicing through the garden's peace was like a bucket of cold water. "An absolute disgrace. I demand to speak with the king at once." It was Raina, her tones sharp with outrage, followed by Grant's calm but firm attempts to reason with her. The kiss broke. Talon and Selene pulled apart, both breathing heavily. He rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed for a second, a look of pure frustration on his face. When he opened them, the stormy gray was filled with a new, protective fire. "They will challenge this," he said quietly. "There will be those who do not understand. But it does not matter." He took both of her hands in his, squeezing them gently. "The bond is real. It is everything. You are not weak, Selene. You have endured a lifetime of doubt, and you are still standing here, strong enough to accept a destiny that would terrify others." He looked at her with such unwavering conviction that she truly began to believe him. "You are my mate. You are my Luna. My queen. And I will spend every day of forever proving to you that you are worthy, that you are powerful, and that you are loved." The words washed over her, healing old wounds and forging new strength. The scared girl hiding behind the pillar was gone. In her place stood a woman, her hand held firmly in her king's, her lips still tingling from his kiss, and a new, awakening power stirring in her soul. She wasn't sure what the future held, or what her wolf would be when she finally emerged. But for the first time she was not facing it alone. She squeezed his hand back, a small, confident smile touching her lips. She was ready. Did Selene's wolf finally awaken? What challenges did they face from the pack and her furious sister? Their story is only just beginning. Subscribe to stay updated and never miss a new chapter of their passionate, thrilling romance.